Hi and welcome to Salesforce Live. We're coming to you live from Dreamforce in Moscone West. So from wherever you're watching in the world, we hope that you're having a great day. It's day one here at Dreamforce, and today we've been hosting this great event called the Sales Summit. It's actually the fourth time that we've been running this at Dreamforce, and it's a whole day dedicated to sales professionals, whether you're a sales leader, a sales manager, an individual rep, or in sales operations. And over the next 20 minutes, we're going to be talking to a couple of our speakers that talk to the Sales Summit and sharing some of their insights. We have a great lineup, so let's go through. Walter, why don't you introduce yourself?
And Walter Rogers, I'm the CEO of CCI Global Holdings. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Maria?
Maria Valdivieso. I'm a knowledge expert for McKinsey & Company out of the Miami office. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Hi, I'm Will Anastas. I'm the SVP on an enterprise sales team here at Salesforce.
Perfect. So all of us, my background as well, Tim Clark, Product Marketing Director at Salesforce. I spent 8 years in sales before I moved into my marketing role. Obviously, clearly, all of us are very passionate about sales, and there's so many trends really impacting sales right now. So Walter, what are some of the key things that you're seeing impacting salespeople right now?
Well, it's a really exciting time to be in sales. A lot of people don't know that here in the United States, 13% of the population is either in a direct sales role or impacted by sales in some way. And it's a liberating time because so many technologies have become available that really allow a seller to be much more knowledgeable about their buyer, their buyer's customers, their buyer's needs, personal, professional, and so on and so forth. And as long as they're able to make a personal connection with these individuals, leveraging all this information, then their opportunity for them to make an impact on that individual, the organization, the community is more significant than it's ever been.
Perfect, thank you. Maria, obviously, you're the co-author of a brand new book, Sales Growth. What are some of the key things that you and McKinsey & Company are really seeing out there right now?
You know, I agree. It's a very interesting time to be in sales. Customers are changing. They're changing a lot. They're being affected by digital, by sophistication of processes, and it is a very interesting time for salespeople. I think that truly embracing digital and using digital to manage the customer experience and manage the customer base in the front line and in the back office is quite exciting. I think also managing data and analytics and truly bringing insights to the Salesforce is another great opportunity. And I think finally, truly thinking about the salespeople and building the A-team with the salespeople it's a good time to do it now. But it's hard because things are changing, and I think that sales leaders have an opportunity but also struggle with adapting to those changes to be able to take advantage of it.
Right, perfect. And Will, obviously, as senior executive at Salesforce, what are you really passionate about? What are you and your sales team seeing out there right now?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of different things. First, obviously, the customer is much more educated today than they were even 5-10 years ago. And the proliferation of technology that enables customers to be smart is also at our disposal as well in sales. So for me, the key differentiator that we've been trying to talk to our sales folks about is essentially we need to stand out from the herd of salespeople that are showing up with the same information that we have, right? So how do we change our perspective and how we do discovery, for instance, so that we can show up as like literally your customer's customer and provide that point of view that is authentic, genuine, and empathetic that will help you break through and separate yourself from really everyone else who's trying to sell to this individual. So I think it's a challenging time, but I also think it's full of opportunity.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things about that, your session, it's not about you at the Sales Summit today. I think it's something clearly we're all seeing across the industry. You can't lead with product anymore. CB, Brent Adamson at the Sales Summit today talked about a stat that CB have used many times, about 57% of the buying process has been completed before they engage the salesperson. So we know that. We know a lot of the time any purchasing decisions that we make, we'll just do our research online, and so the sales professional now needs to truly add value. So Will, why don't you give us a couple of highlights from your session with Ashley Welch today?
Sure, so we spent some time today talking about a project that we launched with a company called Somersault Innovation, which is where Ashley Welch and her co-founder Justin Jones came from. And what they did was they took the principles of design thinking and applied it to a sales process, right? A sales discovery methodology. And there were three main components of it: empathy, customer centricity, and curiosity. And what I've noticed is that as we've rolled out these trainings to our salespeople, they have found themselves in situations that they didn't expect to find themselves in. For instance, one example we used today was one of my account executives has Greyhound as a prospect account. And we've been trying to get into Greyhound for years, doing the same thing over and over again, looking at LinkedIn, looking at the available information on the web. So finally, after we did this training, Sachin Ray, who's the account executive, he just went and got on a bus. And instead of flying to LA for the weekend, he took a Greyhound from San Francisco to LA, and he talked with a bunch of people at Greyhound, and he figured out a bunch of insights that he would never have gotten by sitting at his desk and looking at the web. And that led him to a position where when he phoned up Greyhound, it wasn't so much about, hey, let me tell you about Salesforce and the products that can help Greyhound transform. It was about, let me tell you about the experience I had as your customer on this bus ride to LA. And that warm intro, that empathetic intro, has taken him all the way to the office of the CEO at Greyhound in a very short period of time. So for me, it's really about separating yourself out and trying different things to get you in front of your prospects faster. And that's one technique that we've used, and it's really worked out well for us.
I mean, I know we've had clearly so many speakers in the sales development track at the Sales Summit today who have been sharing their insights, whether it's how you use social selling, how you leverage all these different tools available to you. We all know the importance about having the right conversation at the right time, at the right place, on the right channel. We've probably all received those prospecting emails, which are just generic, and then you get the second one saying, I didn't hear from you, and then the third one and saying, did you get hit by a car, or do you want to respond to me? So clearly, prospecting, sales development is a really exciting area right now, and there's so much technology out there that can really support sales professionals to be successful. Maria, you on stage with Lorena Yee. I know she was a return Sales Summit speaker. Why don't you give us a quick overview of some of the things that you discussed today in your Sales Summit presentation?
Absolutely. We talked about 4 of the key strategies that we've seen fast growth companies do to actually drive growth. The first one is understanding the customer. And I think that many organizations sell to customers today the same way they were selling to them 50 years ago. And truly understanding how to leverage technology to be able to personalize that experience and to personalize that relationship is actually quite important. We also talked about advanced analytics. We talked about how it is very hard to use advanced analytics, but there's so much potential. And it not always has to be a very sophisticated approach to advanced analytics. Organizations can gather a lot of information and a lot of insights just from looking at their basic data from, how do I align sales resources to opportunities? How do I think about sales forecasting? And more sophisticated around how do I do predictive analytics to predict customers that might be at risk, to predict customers that might be more attractive than the rest. And I think that the key there that we talked about is how do you make it real for the sales force, for the frontline sales force, and make it easy for them to make better decisions based on the data that you have, while at the same time you gather that data from the customers from the field and bring it back into the organization. And then finally, we talked about building successful teams and understanding the right profiles within your organization. And once you understand those profiles, how do you actually replicate them? How do you think about your hiring plans? How do you think about your capability building plans? How do you think about your motivators to truly motivate the way your top performers react to it? So it was pretty good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And obviously advanced analytics, it's critical. I think we've all seen how much data is out there and how much data isn't being utilized. I think many people have been watching Salesforce over the last few months. Mark Benioff has made some really exciting announcements about AI, intelligence, and Einstein. So we've got some great keynotes coming up on Salesforce Live. Highly encourage everyone to watch that later on. I think tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m. Because ultimately now technology is in the position where you almost don't need the salespeople to have to manipulate that data or do their own discovery. The technology should be providing recommendations to say, hey, this individual at this company has looked at all these different pieces on your website, and actually they're at a really good time to buy or a great time to pick up the phone and give them a call. Walter, we were on stage together. We had a killer panel, and we had 3 massive brands up on stage, both joint customers of yours and at Salesforce. Why don't you talk a little bit about who was on stage and what we were going over?
Yeah, it was a great session. We were very blessed to have Amazon Web Services on stage, and Ingersoll Rand and Publicis.Sapient, which are 3 well-renowned brands, very different spaces. All of them were tackling different transformational challenges, and none of them really had a problem to begin with. It's just that they wanted to continue to improve and get better. And we've talked a lot about the impact of technology on this panel here today. I want to just take a little sidestep and talk about the impact of a personal connection with a human being. And that's something that I personally experienced working in partnership with Amazon Web Services. I've actually gone deep into some of their sales cycles as they try to convince customers to move from on-premises to a cloud-based infrastructure. And there was one customer that we were working with who just did not want to move. They were very efficient in how they were running their operation. They felt like they would not save any money. However, when we dug really, really deep, his personal motivator was impacting the public education system. And by moving the data from the on-prem to the cloud, he was going to be able to correlate his information across many other databases and build out a predictive analytics model so they could spot students before they got in trouble by looking at various trends, like did the parent just go on welfare, those types of things. And because we're able to make that human personal connection, this company is now beginning to make a migration across to the AWS infrastructure. So we can't ever kind of overlook the impact of the human connection. So that was something that I found particularly impactful.
I remember we did an event earlier this year, Sales Machine, and we had another one of our executives, Patrick Blair, and Gary Vaynerchuk, who was on stage, and they had this great conversation about the importance of being human. You know, we've all received LinkedIn requests or other social media requests, and some of them are just so generic, and you know, you just accept, decline, and you know, clearly there's an opportunity to act like a human and to personalize it, right?
Absolutely, and to focus on not yourself but the other party. It's why I love the title of your breakout. It's not about you. You'd be amazed at what a difference it can make in getting the email response when you take the words me, I, and we out of your emails completely and focus them all on the word you and what's important to the other person. Your response rates will go up probably about 50%.
Right. So you talked a little bit about Amazon Web Services being on stage. What's the connection between AWS, Ingersoll Rand, and Sapient Nitro?
Well, there are 3 clients that we've been blessed to, been hired by to help implement various strategies for them. With AWS, it was about a global selling methodology. We're in our 4th year of that deployment. With Ingersoll Rand, is a global sales management system. We're also in the 4th year of that deployment. And then with Publicis.Sapient, it's a Salesforce.com implementation. And their focus was around visibility and collaboration. And had a really interesting challenge. When we first got engaged, their pipeline was inverted. In other words, the pyramid was upside down, and they wanted to flip it so that they could have more visibility, more early deal stage entry. And within a very short period of time, Salesforce was able to give them that inverted pipeline. So they went from, a pyramid that looked like this to one that looked like that. In 60 days, 12 months later, it still looks that way. So.
And one of the interesting points on the panel was the importance of culture, particularly massive global organizations. All of us obviously work for big global companies, and the importance of not being in that ivory tower and saying, hey, you've got to do this, or you've got to deploy your CRM or whatever technology, but actually getting that buy-in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they all mentioned the importance of vision and the communication of that vision down to a granular level by taking a corporate vision and making it a personal vision, communicating that to their teams. And there were specific strategies that were discussed about how to interact with the specific geos.
Clearly culture is a massive thing at Salesforce, massively important. You can see here we are in the middle of our massive Trailhead zone at Dreamforce. I think Trailhead's been a game changer. Number one, obviously for our customers. Clearly, we want everyone to be as successful as possible in getting the value back from Salesforce. But it's also something we've been using internally, right, to help our culture, either in an individual rep level, but also for our managers with various skills. So perhaps, Will, you can give some insight as to how we've used Trailhead internally at Salesforce.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So it's really accelerated our ability to reach and scale hundreds and thousands of people in a very short period of time. As Salesforce has grown, I joined Salesforce in 2010. I was employee number 4,000, so this place has really grown dramatically since I've joined. And our ability to scale through Trailhead and get the right information to the right people at the right time has really been a game changer for us. But it also aligns us around everything that we believe in, right? We want our managers to behave a certain way, the Salesforce way, within the Ohana tent, as we call it, right? So it's really accelerated our ability to get it done and get it done fast.
Right, perfect. And Maria, just looking at some of the organizations that you work with, how important is culture, in terms of actually helping salespeople make some of these transformations within their business?
I think it's tremendously important. And when we did the research for the book, there's a few things that we learned. I think the first one is exactly what you said, which is the vision is critical. It needs to be a top-down vision and needs to be aligned. But at the same time, you also have to have the frontline buy-in. And they need to understand what's in it for them. And I think once you have that, that's your first step. Beyond that, you have to think about how you're going to provide them the role modeling, how you're going to provide them the tools and the training and the coaching, for them to be able to actually successfully move through this transformation. I think the other thing I've seen that's quite successful is employing some of your Salesforce as ambassadors for the program. So having a few people that have been successful by implementing a program and use them to talk to each other about what has worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. Because I think it's so much more real for salespeople when they learn from each other. Whether it's within an organization or across organizations, it's different, and I think that's important as well.
And so we covered the point earlier on about it's not about me. And one of the things that all three of you have got in common, you're all contributors to Quotable.com. There was a new initiative that Salesforce came out with earlier this year where it's not about us. It is about our audience and sales professionals. How important do you think it is to self-develop, to stay ahead of the game? And also, what's the right balance? Because ultimately in sales, you still have a number to hit, whether that's pipeline generation, whether it's closing deals. So maybe, Will, let's start off with yourself, your views there.
So I think it's important for all of us to stay on top of everyone else's great ideas, right? I mean, I don't think anyone has the right answer for everything, right? So I love listening to other people walk me through their problems and think how creatively they found a solution to solve those issues. So events like this, even just reading some of the articles on Quotable, kind of opened my mind to other things that could potentially help my team. Because when I read an article, I kind of say, okay, how could that work for my group? And how can I take a couple of nuggets of information that I got from your piece, for example? How can I deploy that across my team to make them more effective or create a better environment for them to sell in? So those are kind of the things I'm always constantly looking for and mining. And I think it's important for all sales leaders to kind of be always looking for kind of the next best thing, right? Because we're never going to find the best thing. It's just there's always something more we can learn if we just open our minds to see what's out there.
And Maria, what about your thoughts? Obviously, the importance of sales individuals, obviously looking at some of the research that you're putting out, reading sites like Quotable. How do you get that balance as well?
I agree that the balance is very important. When I look across many of the organizations I work with, too many sales reps are spending too little time with customers, and spending time with customers is absolutely critical. And I think what sales organizations need to do is they need to free up the time. They need to free up the time for them to be with customers, and then also they need to free up the time for them to be, trained and coach. And I think part of that training is understanding what are some of the trends that are happening in my sector as a sales leader, in my customer sectors as well. How is technology affecting different processes? And I think it's quite important for them. And as you said, but keeping the balance of doing both is important. And I think it's up to the sales leaders within the organization to actually free up that time.
And you mentioned there, obviously, the importance of spending time with the customer, and that really ties in nicely to your session earlier on about customer obsession and making sure that it's a true reality and not just a catchphrase.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to this notion of self-development, curiosity is probably one of the single most important traits and values that a salesperson should have. And that comes to self-development around your own personal skills, curiosity about your customer, your customer's customer, because if you don't take the time to study and read and get better yourself, there is no way you're going to help your customer. And there's no way the customer is going to have trust in you. So it's essential. For me personally, I'd take an hour every morning and just do nothing but read. Quotable, other sources. And I would recommend that practice, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, to invest that time. If your manager won't do it for you, then you should do it for yourself.
And clearly everyone has their own learning style. I'm quite a visual person. I love watching videos.
Yeah.
Some people love podcasts. Some people like writing articles as well. So I think it's finding the right learning mechanism for you.
Yeah.
So look, we're at Dreamforce, as we said. Will, you said you joined in 2010, so this is your 6th or 7th Dreamforce?
7th.
Any tips for our viewers that you would recommend whilst, if they're attending Dreamforce, anything that they have to do this week?
Well, you have to check out all the keynotes, all the product keynotes. We've got some amazing announcements coming out tomorrow in Mark's keynote, obviously. But it's just an amazing event. Every year I come here and I'm completely blown away by kind of the innovation that happens here, the meetings that happen here. It's really the place to be. And my advice for those folks who are watching, try to come here next year.
Right, and luckily, obviously, with Salesforce Live, so many of the keynotes will be available online. Let's start wrapping up a little bit and thinking about some of the key takeaways. We know it's overwhelming right now in sales. There is so much for these individuals to do. We haven't even touched on the whole sales and marketing conversation, sales enablement. We could go on for hours. Let's just maybe think about like what would you recommend as one key thing if people are watching this that they should go out and do right now, whether it's going to read something, going to watch something. Maria, let's start off with yourself.
We've said it before, and I'll repeat it again. Start with the customer. Hear what your customer has to tell you. Understand what their problems are and how you can help them build their solutions. So make sure you always stay with a customer-centric strategy.
Perfect. Walter?
I would say look at your account base, and if you've got a lot of accounts, pick your top 10 and focus and double down on those top 10 and really, really study and understand the corporate initiatives and imperatives that those customers have. It's all available. It's publicly available information for the most part, and try to make your own mental connection as to how you can help within those imperatives.
And what's the right balance there between obviously prospecting or doing your research on an account level versus a contact level? I mean, many large enterprise organizations, they clearly have so many subdivisions. So where do you start?
Well, it's all very contextual depending on whether you have one account or 100 accounts. But, I would start with publicly available information. Look for those corporate imperatives because the individuals you're selling to are going to somehow align to those corporate imperatives. If they're not on that top 3 list of the CEO, the likelihood of funding is probably not going to be that high.
Right. Okay. And Will, any kind of top tip for sales professionals right now?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of teeing off on what Maria said. It basically just go and be your customer, right? So go out and have an authentic experience around your customer or prospect and actually feel what it's like to be a customer of that brand. And then take those insights that you gain and play them back for your customer prospect, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you can get to some pretty high-level meetings.
And I guess final question very quickly, what have you seen as the best example of someone connecting with you or prospecting into you, whether it be on LinkedIn or social networks? Any top tips there for connecting with some of the key prospects? Will, I'm going to look at you again with the team here. Any top tips?
That people have prospected into me?
Right.
So I got a really great Basho email the other day, which is all about me. That made me actually respond, right? Maybe it was my ego, maybe it was just no one's really approached me that way. I generally get the basic email with how come you haven't responded to me yet. But that was really good. It was well thought out, it was well researched, it was about me, it was assumptive about what my potential pain points were, and he did a good job.
Okay. Well, look, we need to wrap up here. Clearly, hearing about tailoring it is massively important. So we are wrapping up here from Moscone West at Dreamforce. Obviously, engage with us on Salesforce Live and watch out some of the great broadcasts that are coming to you. Thanks for your time.